Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we've got something a little bit different. Basically, what I want to do today is kind of take a laid-back approach. But what we want to discuss is Erik Ten Hag's signings that he made last summer, how they done in their first season, kind of rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how well they performed. We'll be looking at Eriksen, Tyrell Malacia, Lisandro Martinez, Casemiro and Antony. Of course we could look at the loans of players like Jack Butland, Weghorst, Sabitzer, etc. as well, but I don't really think it's worthwhile. I've spoken about Weghorst and Sabitzer recently on a live stream, and the other loanees we never really saw play, like Butland for example. So, instead what we're going to do is we're just going to go through these players one by one and basically rate their season. We'll have a short discussion kind of on each player and go from there basically. So first up, Christian Eriksen, bought into the club on a free transfer. How well do I think he has done this season? Personally, I think the fact that it was a free transfer makes it look like a really good bit of business. I know if we're using a bit of recency bias, people will look at him and say his performances have dropped off massively towards the end of the season. And that is the case. Recently, kind of for physical reasons, he has really struggled in the team. But I think, certainly during the first half of the season, what he brought on the ball to this United side was really important. And when United were playing really good transitioning football against the likes of Arsenal early in the season, Eriksen's passing ability was a big part of that. His ability to get the ball and quickly move it forward was hugely important. And the way that I look at it is that if Manchester United hadn't signed Christian Eriksen, the midfield this season would have been Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes and most likely Fred, who, you know, I think we can all see that would have been a massive drop-off in terms of what United can do on the ball. So personally, I think Eriksen has been a really good signing and he's had a really good season. Moving forward, what is his place in the team? I think I would like to see him kind of phased out next season and kind of used as more of as a backup player, as a rotational player for cup competitions, maybe playing back up to Bruno Fernandes in that 10 role. That's kind of where I can see Eriksen's future moving forward. But in terms of the past season, the past year or so, I think Eriksen has had a good season. And I think personally I would put him in this kind of 5 to 6 area. I think his performances in the second half of the season stop him getting up here. I think the last couple of months he just hasn't been on it. And of course he had that massive injury as well, which certainly wouldn't have helped him. So that kind of stops him from going any higher. But I think the fact that he was a free transfer, he's brought a lot of experience, but also a lot of quality on the ball. I think he's been roughly a 5 to 6. Let me know for all of these players what rating you would give them. We'll go through them one by one. Go in the comments, put Malacia, Eriksen, Lisandro Martinez, Casemiro, Antony, and then put a rating next to them, what number you would be giving them. For me, Eriksen gets a 6. Next up, and you can see we are going to kind of go through these quite quick, we're not going to have a massive discussion on it. Tyrell Malacia, bought into the club last summer for about £12 million. And early on in the season, it looked like he might take Luke Shaw's position in the team. Shaw was struggling in the first 2 or 3 games, Tyrell Malacia came in and done very well. And he's locked down some good players this season against Salah early in the season, but also Riyad Mahrez as well. Now, again, he's a player where if you look at his performances slightly more recently, he has struggled a little bit. However, we saw talks the other week that the aim for him this season was to get around 20 appearances. He's actually had much closer to 40 appearances this season. I think he has been used much more than what Ten Hag was expecting to use him. Factor in the fact also that he is still very young, and this was his first season playing in the Premier League. I think he's done a really good job as a backup. I don't think he's ever going to be the starting left back for Manchester United. I'm just not sure he's got that quality. Not to displace Luke Shaw from the team, but as a backup who can be brought in certain situations, a reliable option, again I think he's had quite a good season. Now, he has areas he needs to improve. His defensive awareness and 1 versus 1 ability does need work. And he seems to have lost a bit of aggression in his game, which he showed in the Eredivisie before. So maybe we can see that coming back to his game next season. And I also think on the ball, he just needs to be a little bit more creative in the final third. But again, for 12 million, when you consider today's market, 12 million is so cheap. And I think he's had a decent season. He's adapted to the league pretty quickly, pretty well. And he looks kind of comfortable on the ball in all situations. I see why he was signed. Now, in terms of rating-wise, again, he's certainly not a 9 or a 10 because, you know, he was signed as a left-back and just hasn't played enough football to be a 9 or a 10 because he hasn't really broken into the first team. A 7 or 8, I think, would be a little bit generous. I'd probably put him just below Christian Eriksen simply because he hasn't been able to make that left-back spot his own. He hasn't really been able to displace Luke Shaw from the team. He challenged him in the early weeks, but apart from that, since then, Shaw has been the main left-back. But I still think Tyrell Malacia, as a backup player, a squad player, someone who is happy to sit on the bench for some games and then get his chance in cup competitions in Europe, I think he's done a really good job. So genuinely, I think it was really good business. And if you look at these two, Eriksen and Tyrell Malacia, the roles they've played this season, the amount of football they've played, and the important games they've featured in, between them they cost £12 million. That is good business. And for me, I think they've both had good seasons. And, again, I think if we're looking at both of them moving forward, I think their role next season will be as a squad player. Next up on the list, someone who will most certainly not be a squad player next season, Lisandro Martinez. Brought into the club from Ajax, a lot of talk about his height and the cost as he joined the club. He shut everyone up basically, didn't he? What a player, Lisandro Martinez. One of Manchester United's most important players at the club. And I think what really highlighted his performance actually was his injury against, was it Sevilla he got injured against? And, not seeing him for the rest of the season, how much the team changes, the ability to play the ball out from the back, but also the aggression with the way that he defends. Lisandro Martinez is a key part of this team. Now, yes, he did cost a lot of money, but most players these days do. I think Lisandro Martinez is a player, though, which will feature at the heart of this Manchester United team as long as Ten Hags is at the club. We're looking at Eriksen and Malacia and saying they probably get phased out a little bit next season or, maintain their squad role on the bench. That will not happen with Lisandro Martinez. He is without doubt a starter. He's one of the most important players at the club, and I think he's been really good. His ability on the ball is matched by no other Manchester United player in the defensive areas. Luke Shaw would be the closest, but even still I think Lisandro Martinez is kind of a level above. He offers a bit of versatility if needed, and I think next season we're really going to see him coming into his element, especially if United kind of recruit well in different areas, get better on the ball. We could see an even better Lisandro Martinez. So, he's been in United's top 5 players this season. The fact that he should be better again next year, again, kind of having that adaptation period to get used to the league. Watch out for Lisandro Martinez next season. For me, though, he has been absolutely phenomenal, and I would be very tempted to put him right up in this top bracket. I think I would put him as a 9. I wouldn't go a 10, because he hasn't had a 10 out of 10 season, but I would put him as a 9. I think he's been absolutely phenomenal, and crucial to the way that United want to play moving forward. Someone else who has been pretty darn crucial to Manchester United is Casemiro. Again, brought in for a lot of money, but again we can see why. Kind of his impact in the team straight away when he kind of was getting his first start. It's clear to see. United's best football comes with Casemiro in the team. Their best defensive performances come with Casemiro in the team. His leadership qualities, he's been there and done it all. Now, in terms of the weaknesses in his game, he's had too many suspensions, which isn't ideal. Defensively, he kind of dives into challenges a little bit at times, he overcommits, and on the ball, his passing can be a little bit sloppy. And it's been frustrating at times this season. Again, he's another player where if we're talking about, since February, his performances have dropped. And I think actually maybe the fact that we're seeing this with all of these players so far, it might suggest that fatigue has been massively to blame for this. But Casemiro hasn't been the same since around the February time. Maybe it's because of the suspensions affecting the way he plays, but he hasn't been the same player. So in terms of, where we rank him, I think he's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant to Manchester United this season. And I think he will be brilliant again next season. He'll be a key part of the way which United want to play, particularly his experience and his leadership role. In terms of this season, where would I rate him? Personally, I can't quite put him on the level of Lisandro Martinez. And the reason for that is because it took him a bit of time to break into the team when he first joined the club. It was a few weeks before we saw him. He's had several suspensions, and also recently he just hasn't been playing regularly enough because of suspension. And also, again, that performance level has dropped. Not sure why, but the performance levels have dropped off in recent weeks. In recent months, really. I think I would put him as an 8 out of 10 signing, though, personally. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, this video isn't meant to be massively in-depth from a analysis point of view. This was more about just kind of talking about some of the players which Ten Hag signed, how well I think they've done, and then also a quick word on the next transfer window as well. But before that, we need to talk about the last player, Antony. And I think this might be the one which divides opinion the most. Brought in for the biggest transfer fee, around 100 million or whatever it was. Antony has had his critics this season from mainstream media, and I've seen him in flop of the season 11s, which is absolutely absurd. Now, Antony is one of the players which I would actually say has got better as the season has gone on. He has massively improved, he's adapted to the league really well, and is now a key Manchester United player. And again, a bit like we were talking about with Lisandro Martinez, I think you see how important Antony is when he doesn't play. You know, in recent weeks, he's had knocks again. I think when he isn't in the team, Manchester United look a lot worse from a defensive point of view, the way that they press, the way that he tracks back, but also on the ball. His ball retention, his ability to carry the ball up the pitch and get the team into the final third, he's been really very impressive. And personally, I think he is one of United's most important players at this moment in time. Now, again, like the others, there are areas of his game which have been disappointing. His creativity in the final third hasn't been good enough, and he is too one-footed. He does need to improve on his right foot to add that little bit of variation to his game and, you know, take his game to the next level. But if we're talking about what he's done this season, he's been one of United's higher goal scorers. He's played in all the big games, he's scored some important goals against Barcelona, for example, and I think he's had a really good season. If we were to rank him, again, he's not Lisandro Martinez level because, you know, he hasn't hit the numbers you would want from an attacker, and he did take a bit of time to settle. Would we put him on Casemiro's level? Probably not quite. But I think if we put Antony here, I think he's had a better season than Eriksen and a better season than Tyrell Malacia. I think Antony goes into here quite nicely, and I think that is how I would rate Erik Ten Hag's first set of signings as Manchester United manager. Again, super laid back video, nothing massively in depth, just something to talk about really. Rather than breaking this up into 5 different 10-minute videos, I thought I'd bung it all into one and let you know kind of where my head is at with Ten Hag signings. For me, his first set of signings have done very well. I think I'm personally quite impressed with his recruitment so far, but I think it needs to improve again this summer. What will happen this summer, we don't know. Personally, I'm not too optimistic going into the transfer window, but we will see. If Ten Hag can get it right and implement the right style of players, these style of players, which bring a certain tenacity off the ball and a technical ability on the ball, then we will see this team moving in the right direction. But we will have to wait and see what Ten Hag does over the summer. I will, of course, be covering it really in depth over the next couple of months. But yeah, that's what I've got to say for today's video. So let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my ratings? Have I been harsh on anyone? Have I been a bit too generous with anyone? Let me know what you think. We'll give Tyrell Malacia a 5, Eriksen a 6, Antony a 7, Casemiro an 8, and Lisandro Martinez a 9. In my opinion. But thank you guys for watching, I hope you have enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you in the next one.